Hello, welcome back to the Burnout Prevention Network. My name is Casey Pacheco, and today we're going to be interviewing Dr. Nyampu Karmuhal. We've been doing the Burnout Prevention Network talk show where we've been interviewing different specialists, experts, or members of our team, and we are doing a special show today where we interview each other. So, Dr. Nyampu, we're going to start. We're going to put you on the spot. I made a very nice banner here. So we see that she has her nice African garb. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what made you want to be a nurse.
Oh, thank you, Casey, for this opportunity. I am honored to be here, and it is strange to be in the hot seat.
Ah.
But anyway, it's a privilege. It sure is a privilege. So I grew up in Liberia. I was born and raised in Liberia,
Mhm.
West Africa, and later on came to the U.S. But when you ask the question, what brought me into nursing?
Mhm.
I grew up in a home of nurses. My
Oh,
mother, yes, my mother back home in Liberia was a nurse. She still is a nurse. So
mhm.
I grew up admiring her. And even at the age of 9, I knew I wanted to become a nurse. You know how they ask you in class, what do you want to be become when
Yeah.
you grow up? I had a teacher in third grade that asked and said, what do you know? She went around the room and I knew then I wanted to become a nurse. That was my answer, and it has never changed. And then coming to the US, my dad became a nurse's aide in the US. So I walked into a home with, to be sheltered and loved by a nurse's aide. So mother RN, father nurse's aide, go
Wow.
figure. It's in my,
Yes.
it's in my blood.
It's in your blood. It really is in your blood. Anybody that sees you knows it's in your blood. So I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
ask you, like, what do you think as being a nurse, always wanting to be a nurse from a family of nurses, what do you think about the state of nursing right now?
Oh goodness. It breaks my heart, really. The nursing profession that I grew to love, right? And wanted to become this nurse that was so loved by the community, this nurse that was revered by her community, which is my mother. And then coming into the US and still wanting to become a nurse. And I would say the nursing I saw before then and now, it's a sad, um, uh, there's a major gap, is what I
Mhm.
want to say. Now I see nurses who don't want to become a nurse no more. They are burning out, they are worn out. They
Mhm.
just don't like the profession anymore. And the strain of of healthcare, the strain of caregiving has really drained our professionals. So the state of nursing right now is not a good place. For mentally, for me, it saddens my heart to think where we have come, and God forbid where we're headed if we don't do
Yeah.
something about the situation.
Yeah, and Dr. Nayampu, you have such a good perspective because you're not just seeing the burnout, but you have experienced burnout, and you are also you're a certified mental health nurse. You are a doctor of nursing practice, and you have also had your own personal experience with burnout. Let me know what that was like for you. What caused it? What are some of the contributing factors, and how did you get over it, or are you even over it?
Oof, you you're burning me with the burnout stuff. But anyways, Casey, I never knew I was burned out till I was deep into it.
Wow.
So I would say this started when I knew I was burned out. This was in 2016. I had been previously, as always, a mother of four, a
Mhm.
wife. I was undertaking my master's then in nursing education. I was working a full-time job. So I had four responsibilities on hand. And I had a nurse manager once tell me, you are burning the candles from both ends. And I
Ooh.
felt offended. I felt like she never knew my struggle. She never knew why I had to take on all of these responsibilities. And then
Mhm.
a maybe 6, 7 months later is when it really dawned on me that I was burnt out. And this was
Mm.
my return from Liberia during the Ebola crisis.
Oh,
I have
wow.
volunteered as a nurse from here, went back home to Liberia, and returned after my service there, and I was in quarantine. And just the fact that during that period of time, um, I was not responsible for running to work, going to classes, taking care of my children, looking after my husband, looking after other, you name it. So at that time in quarantine for 21 days, I was sitting in a building without even coming out. Okay. So everything just poured down in my spirit that something was wrong because I was not so busy. My mind and physically, I was not busy anymore. So that is when I realized that I something was wrong. I just could not get a hand on it. I could not, I just could not define what this was. Being a nurse, you would think, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
had a clue, but I never did. But I would tell you one thing: I had stopped being so compassionate about the profession. At that point, I was like, why should I even go back to work?
Mm.
And also afraid. So I had mixed feelings, like afraid to tell anyone that I was feeling apathy about this profession that I've loved since I was 9. I was
Mm.
afraid to tell them. And the culture I'm from, telling someone that you don't have passion for nursing anymore, you just
Yeah.
you feel afraid going to work, you feel disvalued, just all those overwhelmed overwhelmed feelings. It was
Yes.
hard to tell anyone. It was very hard to
You
tell another human.
I can imagine. And you mentioned certain words like apathy and just devalued. These words, they really are trigger words for burnout because a lot of people tuning in, they may think, well, everybody gets tired, especially as a profession where we usually use our bodies a lot and our minds. So we get tired. But you said you didn't know how to even describe it. That's how intense the feelings were. That it wasn't just tired. It was a little bit more than that. How did you recover?
Well, Casey, I had to go back to thinking, how did this all start? Why am I feeling this way? And I told you about how busy I was, but I never said how the feeling of feeling devalued came about.
Mm,
Because what was morally acceptable to me, what my moral standards, my moral compass is all about, was not valued by my employer at the time. My
mm,
employer felt like I should not go to Liberia. So that broke my heart. Like, wait a minute, I'm a nurse. Why shouldn't I go to Liberia during this time to to give my services to the very place I was born and my native country? So that, going back in timeline, figuring out why do I feel like I should not even go back to that job? Why do I feel like, nursing is not being honored at all like it was growing up? So I had to start there. Then I started to do more research on the topic of stress, prolonged stress, and during that time is when my DMP degree really launched. I mean, I'm saying now a year later, I decided to really take on this project to understand what burnout is all about, to
mm,
understand how we can prevent it, to understand what other nurses are experiencing, and if we can really bring research to this topic, how could it help future generations of nurses?
mm,
So when I started on that path, I truly had to go um, into my faith as well. So balancing my faith with my everyday lifestyle really, really helped me to pull me out of this hole, this state of overwhelmed, state of can't sleep, waking up
Mhm.
and feeling like my mind is just like an engine running, feeling so fatigued in the daytime because I can't sleep at night. So I
Wow.
had to fall back heavily onto my faith as a Christian. And I read the Bible, figuring things out. I'm reading literatures, I'm reading research, and then going back to the Bible saying, Lord, what is this? How can you help me through this so I can be a help to someone else? So, yeah.
That's amazing, and I think you really exemplify why we call you a pioneer nurse. That's actually the name of your consulting, Pioneer Nurse Consultant. But being a pioneer, usually when you look at that word, you're someone you're going to the forefront and you're doing exploring territory that really hasn't been explored. So when you say that you went to your faith and you held on to your Christian values, what are some things that actually help pull you up? Did you have any like favorite verses, scriptures, thoughts, or insights that actually helped you?
I did. I have a load of them. But I'll tell you, reading the book of Joshua and
Gosh.
and reading the book of Deuteronomy, the end of the book of Deuteronomy. And it tells you between um, Moses passing on the baton to Joshua, and then Joshua taking that baton to lead the children of Israel into the wilderness. He talked about courage. So
Mm,
that really soaked into my spirit. Like, I need to be courageous. I can't let this, overcome me. I need to be courageous, like these patriarchs in the Bible. And the next thing I did, in all of that, I joined a prayer group.
mhm,
Women are so powerful in praying. Once I joined that community, and these are the principles. You have to not be isolative. You have to join a community that believe in that healing, a community that will pull you out of being isolated and feeling doomed. So
mhm,
reading my Bible, being a member of this community, not just sitting there, but being an active member of that community, and then
mhm.
pouring a whole lot of my this energy now that I'm gaining, pouring it back into my family, making sure I'm spending more time with my family now, going to my
Ooh,
children's ball games, making sure my husband and I are taking a date night, making sure that I just have a bubble bath, watch a
right.
Netflix, just things I never did before. Things if I did them, they were on the surface. They weren't. I wasn't really present. So
Mhm,
really pouring a whole lot of my time, and I coined the word um, life balance. For me, a life balance because a life work balance. So if I can balance my life and
mhm.
then be able to function as a professional, then I'm good. Then I'm good. And truly, those things really help me pull out of this phenomenon. The World Health Organization calls burnout health a healthcare phenomenon because we're still trying to figure it out.
Wow. In your from your perspective, what do you think nurses really need to heal burnout?
Oh my goodness. Because burnout is not only based in the person themselves, it is an entire stratosphere of the community, the workplace, the nurses' lifestyle, work ethics, organizational culture, and all that. I say a nurse should actually step aside, just do something out of the box. Step aside of your workplace. Step aside for a moment and look at yourself in that environment. How functional are you in that environment right now? And then while you're out of the workplace, also step aside for a moment. It may on your family because you are an individual. Being an individual, you have to be a functional unit before you can be functional in society, in a culture, in a community, or even in your family setting. So step aside from all of these um, uh, aspects of life that you play intricate roles in. Step aside and look at yourself. Who are you when you're not in those areas? And then find yourself. So quite frankly, personally, I have taken trips. I take trips just to be away, to think, to 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 just enjoy a time alone, just to be out there where I'm not bombarded by the work environment, bombarded by family obligations, because there is only one of me, there is only one of you, and we're not replaceable. So if we can take care of ourselves, then we can have a lending hand for others.
Absolutely. Dr. Nayampu, there are so many. I think after COVID-19, a lot of people were suffering from burnout, not just the nursing profession, but healthcare on the whole and even other industries. In your professional and personal opinion, why do you think it's so important for nurses not to burn out as a profession?
We are at the core of healthcare, Casey. I recently did an Instagram video, a reel, stating that nurses are taking a day off. So
I think I know that one.
if you were to pull all nurses out of their work environment today, healthcare will crumble.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
are the first that patients see when they walk into the hospital. We're the last they see when they leave. We're the first a child sees when they're born. We're
Mm.
the, we're the last person sees when they're dying. So just comprehend what we bring to the table as nurses. Without nurses, healthcare,
Mm.
that is all I can say.
So,
But
so Dr. Nayampu, as you go about your work, now you're part of the Burnout Prevention Network. You're also the founder of the nonprofit Nurses in Charge, where you're taking this globally, really trying to elevate the practice of nursing. Who are you appealing to stop this phenomenon that's happening? Who are you calling out to make a change?
thank you, Casey, for that question. I'm appealing to nurses first because we chose this profession. No one made us pick up our nursing books and go to nursing school. I'm appealing to all nurses to stop a moment and look in the mirror and say, I am going to take care of myself. Because without me, the job continues to roll. It's like what conveyor belt. It
Yeah,
continues to produce, right?
yeah, just holding those.
Without me as just a person, they will find other nurses at whatever
Mhm.
cost. They will find nurses. So I'm appealing to nurses to stop for a moment and say, I value more than what's happening to me, what I'm allowing to happen to me. And then the step beyond that is that I'm appealing to the organizations that know very well that nurses are valuable, that they will be a sponsor of every program that comes their way. To not only be sponsors, but to be stakeholders, to be truly embedded into it, to make it work for their nurses.
Mm.
Because it is sad to see that they can replace a nurse, a core member of their team, with a travel nurse. Nothing wrong with travel nurses. I've done travel assignments, but the revenue that comes out of hiring a travel nurse versus keeping your core nurse, the
Mm.
math just don't match. They
Mm-mm.
put too much into bringing in nurses that won't stay because they're there for 13 weeks, 8 weeks, 13 weeks, and they're gone. and then they replace them with other nurses, whereas they could take so much more and invest into the well-being of their nurses. So I'm appealing to chief nurse executives. I'm appealing to the CEO of hospitals. I'm
Mm,
appealing to everyone who know they are in leadership role because they have a platform. They have that leadership, uh, uh, I would say, a baton that when they pass it on, someone can benefit from it. So, what are you doing for your nurses? How are you investing in their well-being?
this is really, really deep. I think a lot of executives know that there's a problem. So I really hope they will take you up on it. What would you say if this burnout does not stop within the next 5 years? What are we looking at?
Casey, we are looking at right now. We're in a crisis mode. Next, we're going to have an epidemic progressing to a pandemic in the nursing profession, in healthcare.
Mhm,
Let's just consider a healthcare because even doctors are burning out.
mhm, mhm.
Other professionals within the healthcare arena are burning out. So within 5 years from now, nothing is done. You have nurses who will be patients.
Mm.
So nurses will not be nurses to be functional professionals. They will become psychiatric patients.
I have been seeing this already,
Mhm.
where there are a lot of nurses who actually end up in ICU, and they were leaders,
Yeah.
and they're very sick. So
Excuse me. Yeah.
I think you were sounding the warning. I think that is I think it's very noble of you. I know you're very passionate about this work. You know, just a thought as you were talking, I was thinking when planes are like in the sky and they're flying,
Yeah.
they don't always have to land in order to refill them. You have some planes that can attach to a plane and refuel
Yeah.
them when they're in flight. And I
Mhm.
think with nurses in charge, with the burnout prevention network, this is exactly what we are attempting to do, is to
Mhm.
refuel nurses so that they don't have to land in order to keep serving. So
Yeah.
I really hope they would take you up on your offer. I hope they would pay attention. And I think having you on a platform, speaking out, using your voice, telling your story is absolutely one way to definitely start. I thank you so much for joining. I thank you for being my co host. I look forward to us interviewing many more people and really raising awareness. For the Burnout Prevention Network, for nurses in charge. If there's any last words, any parting words that you have to share, do you have any advice to any of nurses out there, or any last words you would like to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Casey, thank you. Um, to the aspiring nurses, this is such, I would say, this profession of nursing is so valuable. And beyond the fact that we are taking care of patients, we are stewards of this healing ministry that Jesus established. So we should not take that lightly. So coming into nursing, do your research. Do your research on schools that are starting to create their curriculums to help you as a professional out there for a longer run, not just to be that caregiver. You know, caregiver mentality is good, but this is where we come, where we only have the burden of caregiving, but we don't see our the in the longer run who will be 20 years from now and how we can prepare ourselves and how we can evolve as professionals. So the caregiver mentality is great, but do your research and make sure that the schools that you are launching into have a curriculum for human well-being, for healthcare providers' well-being, for business entrepreneurship, for everything that can equip you to be a well-rounded profession out there. And the nurses who are practicing now, I say, when you're looking for a job, vet your employer. Make sure they have programs that will keep you well and safe. Make sure they have a culture that will keep you from burning out. And then to our instructors, I can't say enough of saying thank you for what you do every day. Our nursing instructors, they
Mhm.
too are burnt out because they're short staff as well. So we need to work together. We need to network. We need to collaborate. It is not a one man's job anymore. It is not a solopreneur anymore. It is not working in silos anymore. We need to embrace other nursing professionals to bring enlightenment, to bring research, evidence based practice on these topics that we are addressing. Basically, that's that.
Excellent. Excellent. You said it so well. You touched on so many different points there, Nayampu. And I'm just so, so grateful for your voice and for your time today. And I wish you the best of success as you keep
Thank
on
you.
spearheading this awareness and this movement. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Casey. It's good to work with you.
It's fun here. Thank you.